everyone got that? Thumbs up. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Sorry, I'm just going to get rid of, there we go. So first, some disclaimers. I'm definitely not a professional at science communication. So as Phil said, I'm sharing my experience that I've learned from doing workshops and being encouraged through Superstars of STEM to use social media, as well as running the social media accounts for the AGCC. And I read lots of articles and studies and blogs and those sorts of things, and obviously watch what other people who are awesome at science communication do. Massive disclaimer, always follow your employer's social media policy. You can have on your, say, Twitter account, for example, in your bio, you can say all of my thoughts and tweets are my own. However, that may not stop you from getting in trouble with your bosses or your organisation for what you've said. So always be mindful of your employer's social media policy. And some rules for the webinar: please live tweet or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever you use using the hashtag #virtualGESS with 1 S, not, oh no, 3 S's, that's correct. There'll be some polls throughout. Please participate in that just to keep this a little bit interactive. Use the comments to share your tips and any questions, and there'll be a Q&A at the end. Okay, so the first poll, Tim's going to put those up for me. First question is, do you use social media for science communication? So science communication, what is it? It's basically the practice of informing, educating, and sharing wonderment and raising awareness of science-related topics. So it's pretty wordy. I love this up here. I love this quote from Mark Walpert, from the UK's chief scientist in 2017, that said, "Science is not finished until it's communicated." We all do these amazing scientific work and discoveries and go to these amazing places, but if you're not telling people what you're doing, what's really the point of it? So this is I've also put this up here. This is kind of what some people say science communication is. So it includes scientists and other journalists and PR and press. And they say other actors, and I guess that's other people that are involved in science communication. And you'll see in the second dot point here, it says science communicators and audiences are ambiguously defined as the expertise and level of science knowledge varies with the groups. So basically, if you know a little bit about science, you're a science communicator, as long as you're telling it to people. And science communicators can use entertainment and persuasion, including humour, storytelling, metaphors, GIFs and memes and things like that are really popular within science communication as well. So we have another poll. See if we can get this up and running. If we can't, that's okay. I can live without it. I just want everyone to think about where you get your primary source for science news. Is it newspapers, whether that be print or online, social media, through opinion editorials like The Conversation, newspapers run them sometimes, scientific journals, TV news, or the internet? There we go. Excellent. So if you can just pop in there where you get your social media. Get your news, sorry, social media. Okay, so it seems that the traditional newspaper articles seem to be not the most popular thing that we're getting. Lots of people use social media. So social media is definitely the standout there. Scientific journals and then the internet. So if we can just end that one, thanks, Tim. So, oh, spoiler alert. So why science communication? Just quickly share the results for you. So 50% of us use social media to get our news. Oh, God, what's going? So why science communication? I really like this, thinking about where we get our news. I really think this is a really great little quote from Director of Communications of a, I'm not going to try and pronounce that, but this lady is a Director of Communications at a science outreach and advocacy not-for-profit in Puerto Rico. And she, in a blog, has said that when scientists are able to communicate effectively beyond their peers to a broader non-science audience, it builds support for science. That's really important. I've got a picture there. You'll know that's the coronavirus, and the Kookaburra overlooking the bushfires over the summer. And so it's really important for those two things. Think about how much science has changed. Science communication has changed in the last 6 to 12 months about what the general public knows about science and how they get their science. I think these two events have most definitely changed communication science in Australia, and we're starting to see that policymakers and Parliament are starting to maybe listen a little bit more than they were to the science before, because it's so important. So here's some cool fun facts and figures. 79% of Australians use social media. 31% check their social media accounts more than 10 times a day. I would admit that to your boss if you could help it, because they'd probably be like, well, you're not doing any work. There's all sorts of other facts and figures in that infographic there. I just wanted to highlight this one. 35% of Australians have reacted to something on their feeds which were actually fake news. That's a little bit scary as a scientist, and I'm sure all of us have seen our friends or relatives react to something that is, is fake news. Like one of the things we hear a lot in Central Australia is, oh, the McDonnell Ranges, they used to be as big as the Himalayas. That's definitely not true, and it's a little bit of fake news, but that's perpetuated all through the tourism industry there. So that's something that I always try to say, actually, that's not entirely correct, and then go on to tell them why. So that's something that I think as scientists we need to really be aware of. So why via social media? Well, that poll told us, just from this group here, that 50% of us get our news from social media. So if we can help get science into social media, more people are going to see it. More people are going to perhaps have more of an understanding of their basic year 8 or 9 or 10 science that they've got. But you're creating your own online presence, and you can manage it on your terms because you deem what you post. It's great for building relationships, connecting with peers and collaborators. It just keeps people up to date with what you're doing. If you've got, Aunt Jane over in the UK, she can log on and go, oh, that's really cool. Verity's out in the field today. And also something that I find is one of the reasons I do science and I do science communication, is to inspire others to become interested and involved in science. And that's really important, especially particularly with programs like Superstars of STEM. And also you can, it's a good way of archiving for things that you're interested in as well, because you can access your profile and see what you've posted. But you might say, well, I don't really have anything to share, anything to say, but I bet you do. So if you're sitting in a lab after this and you're researching the properties of a new mineral, say, or of a mineral, take a selfie of yourself on your scientific equipment. That stuff's really cool. People find that really interesting. So share your science and share your research. But it's also building things, like it's building your professional profile, but it's also building your employer's profile. And trust me, bosses love it when you make them look good. So that's something you need to remember, that this isn't just for you, it's for your employer and your future employers. You can help build pre-interest for your publication. If you know you've got a publication coming out soon, start snapping a few photos or taking some photos and post things that of things that you're doing, and as a way of saying, hey, there's going to be a really cool publication coming out in this soon. And reshare articles and colleagues' posts and things like that. And make sure you interact through comments on other posts, respond to comments on your posts. So in the I don't have anything to post thing, there's a little bit of a rule of thirds that social media science communicators recommend you follow the rule of thirds. And you see that dot in the middle there, balanced content. You kind of want to get the right balance of these things. So they're saying a third of your time on social media should be engaging with your followers. You should be replying to comments or commenting on other people's comments and things like that. This promotional content is a third. So that is your events, and make sure you're sharing your brand or your mission or things like that. And so that would be posts that you actually wouldn't create a post yourself. And then the third one is sharing industry news and useful tips. So for example, in ACT recently, we've just launched the voting for the fossil emblem, and that's been in the news. So we might tweet a newspaper article or something like that. So that's the three things you should be trying to how do you balance your feed. People don't really want to know all about you. They want to see what you're interested in as well as what you're doing. So this is something that I found quite interesting when I went to a workshop by Content Group on social media. And this is, who do you want to be online? So these are the personalities, say, of the online influencers, if you like that word. I don't particularly like it. And you can be more than one of these. You probably can't be all of them. I'd say you can probably be 2 or 3 at the most. It's just something to think about. What do you want to be? Who are you when you're online? Do you want to be the David Attenborough? Do you want to be the expert? Do you want to be the person that people come to when they have a question about the geology of the Hunter region, for example, or, you know, the volcanology or things like that? Or do you want to be an activist? Do you want to be you want to make people aware of things that are going on, for example, diversity? Tara Moss is there. She's an excellent activist and advocate for disability. She was once a model and now has to walk with a stick, or sometimes is in a wheelchair. And she tweets a lot about how the world is not made for disabled people and how we can improve that. The Insider, that's Emma Johnson from UNSW. She does awesome, her Twitter page is awesome about engaging and creating debate around things. So it's just something to be aware of, is who do you want to be? And it can change. You can change throughout your life what you are on social media. So once you kind of work out who you want to be and what you have to say, you have to remember that you've got a brand. So if you look at those 2 images there, there's my homepage of my LinkedIn and a homepage on my Twitter. And if you look at that, you knew nothing about me, you'd probably figure out I have something to do with rocks or landscapes that are fairly desolate with no trees. And you also see my profile pictures there are very similar. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar. That was from the photo shoot I did for Superstars of STEM. So once you get your brand, you can start to adapt your post based on the audience and the platform, but also what messages you want to tell people and what you want to talk about. And also it's important as scientists, we have jargon and language that we use that people often don't understand, that don't have that understanding. My housemate used to say to me, "Stop swearing at me in geology," because he had no idea the words he was saying. I could have been speaking a foreign language to him. So when you're using social media, you need to remember there's a fine balance between using the words, the correct words, and using words that the general public and your audience will understand. I've used the example there of isotopic dating or geochronology. Most media outlets, when they do a story on this, will just say they've done some age dating, because the general public don't need to know whether it was on a shrimp or on a laser, or whether you used that to zircon or a monazite or things like that. They just want to know that you did a test and you got this result. So that's something really important to remember about. And also when you come to your branding, make sure that you have a constant message in your bio. So you can see here my about says that I'm a geologist with a certain amount of with experience in these things. That I'm also a superstar of STEM and what I'm passionate about in that field. And then on my Twitter, it says something very similar as well. So this is going to take you a little bit into what makes up a good post on a social media. So things like hashtags and links and trolling, and we'll get into some of those sorts of things. So what's a hashtag? Lots of people have said to me, I don't know what hashtags are. I don't know how to use social media. There's all these words I don't understand. So a hashtag is basically just a label for content. Think of it as an index. If you were an old school, if you're going to go to an old school encyclopedia and you wanted to look something up, you would flick to the back and you would go to the index and you would look up, I don't know, you would look up igneous geology and it'll tell you what page to go to. So a hashtag is basically an index. If you click on a hashtag that says hashtag igneous geology, that will take you to all of the posts that have that hashtag. So that's a way for you to find certain topics or people that tweet about and post about the topics that you talk about, that you want to talk about. And you use them to join in the conversation. You might read a really cool article about, I don't know, about biogeochemistry. So you make a post and you'll link in the article and you go, hey, check out this really cool news article I just read about hashtag biogeology, biogeochemistry. And then you might write something a little bit about what is in the article, those things like that. And that way, and you would tag, and I'll talk about this later, you would tag the person that wrote the article, and that would be a way for you to join the conversation. Someone else that's interested in biogeochem or biochem will go, oh, I read that article too. I found this X, Y, and Z in the article really interesting. So that's a way to join the conversation. And they say, you need to make them unique. Do a really quick search. If you do a quick search of hashtag GSA, it actually comes a lot up with the Gynecological Society of America, which is probably not what you want. So if you see there, we use the hashtag of the full name. And one of the really good tips there that I picked up is that to make your tweets and your posts and your Facebook posts and all of those accessible to software that reads things aloud to hearing impaired, they say to capitalize the first letter of each word, otherwise they can't read it and it'll just come up with hashtag unreadable. Whereas if you use the capitals, when the software reads it aloud, it'll actually read it out as Geological Society of Australia. So that's just a cute little tip to make your posts accessible to everyone. And remember to make them easy to understand and remember. And most people, most things that I've read say limit your hashtags to 3 or 4, particularly if you're going to use them within a sentence, because it gets really annoying to try and read them when they're all hashtags and are all squished together and things like that. And I would also say, make sure, keep in your pocket, say 5 to 10 hashtags that you want to use all the time. And that will just help you'll have a little stash in your head so that when you're doing your posting, you can just quickly use them. Okay, so tagging. What's tagging? So tagging is when someone mentions you in their post and there's a link to your profile that others can click on. So you use this when you want to draw someone's attention to what you're posting or a comment. So typically within most platforms, you use the @ symbol and then you start typing their name and you'll get a list of people with that name and you can select the right one. And so, like I said, this is a great way to shout out and interact with people and things like that. So this is an example I've got from the WOMISA Twitter page. And they did an awesome initiative during Science Week where they did a shout out to people, to women in STEM, and they wanted you to tweet about what you do. So that's their original post. This is the reply. They replied to their own post and tagged all of these people, and there's actually 7 of these. And these are all of their members that have Twitter that they wanted to interact. And some of these people that are in this list are actually on the call today. And then what we were invited to do was then we would then reply to that tweet with our name in it, and then we would say, this is what we do. This is Caroline, one of the governing councillors. This is her response. So she said that she's part of the MINEX CRC team, CRC MINEX team, and she's used an @ there, which is tagging that page. So you can click through and find out what that is at the university, and she's used the hashtag there for Science Week. And just a little tip down the bottom here, on Twitter, if you start a tweet with @ name, it won't actually tag that person. You need to put a full stop and then an @ For some reason, it's just something weird they've got within their software to make it work. Or write a word and then say, hey, @Caroline Tiddy, just to make sure that it goes through, because that's some weird thing that they have within their software. So links, how do you embed a link into your post? These are really important because they will direct your followers and your audience to more information, or whether they can download your paper or your publication, or they can register for an event that you're going to be speaking at or going to, or something like that. And so most platforms, they'll just let you do a copy and paste straight out of the address bar in Google or whatever and chuck it into your post. There's 2 platforms that I know of where that's limited. So in Twitter, you're limited to 140 characters. So if you have a really long, sometimes addresses are quite long, put up there in the little tip, that's 2 of the websites that I know of that you can use. For free, you go onto those websites, you put in the link, and it will create a smaller link for you that will help you with your 140 characters. In an Instagram post, you can't actually doesn't do hyperlinks. You can type your link in there or put your link in there, but it won't do a hyperlink. So you can't click the button and go off to it. So one of the things you can do is put it in your bio and just say in your post that, oh, link is in my bio. You see that quite often. So that's just 2 little tips. Trolls. So heaps of people are worried about getting trolled and trolling online. When I went to the Superstars of STEM social media workshop, they told us that of the last cohort, that 35% of the Superstars of STEM were trolled at some point in that 2-year journey, which is a little bit sad. So here's just some tips to deal with trolls. So the first one is always just to ignore them. And I know that's hard. And if you can't do that, here are some more tips about what to do. Diffuse with humour. I don't know if anyone follows James Blunt on Twitter. And this is the most PG one I could find. He is awesome at diffusing
trolls with Twitter. So this bloke has said, or Het Jones has said, James Blunt has just has an annoying face and a highly irritating voice. And James Blunt's reply was, yeah, and I have no mortgage. So basically, I've got money. I don't have to worry about a mortgage. So, you know, that's his way of doing it. J.K. Rowling also is quite good at it, although she's not in the best public face at the moment. Always block, ban, and if you can, report them. Keep them in the dungeon. Don't give them air. If they're really, really offensive, especially, make sure they're reported because they will then be banned from the platform. Don't be baited and don't delete their posts. You don't want to feed the trolls. So although I said ignore them and diffuse with humour, don't get into an argument with them because that's actually what they want. They want to make you angry. They want to fire you up. They want you to get on there and say, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. Don't do it. But also don't delete their posts. Let other people see what these awful people are saying. And the reason for that is because if you build a supportive and friendly community around you, they will come to you, they will come to your defense. So I'm sure everyone knows about this Taylor Harris photo taken by Michael Wilson in last year's WAFL season. This was basically a photo of a perfect kick and it got trolled and drew lots of negative. And this is Anna Mears standing up and saying, no, this is amazing. I can't believe what the result of it being trolled. They took it down rather than being proud of her and saying go for her. So this is Anna Mears standing up and supporting another athlete. And this is why you need to build yourself a supportive and friendly social media community so they can come to your defense if you get trolls. And also you want these people to share your work as well. So it's really important to build a good community in your social media. So we have another poll. So we're about to go into what platforms, the main platforms, and what do they do. So what social media do you use, whether it's for science, communication, or other? I'll be really interested in this. There's way more than these, but these are probably the most popular ones at the moment. Okay, so lots of people use Twitter, and then LinkedIn and Facebook, and a few others. Okay, so 100% of people have voted. So most people use Twitter and LinkedIn with a few people using Facebook, Instagram, and a couple that use others. So that's really cool. Okay, thank you for that, Tim. Okay, so let's go into what are the main science communication platforms. What I will say is you can use all of them, but it takes up heaps of your time. So I personally have a Facebook, but I only use that for for friends and family. I don't do much science communication. I might post a photo every now and then of a cool rock. I mainly use LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. My Instagram is private and science communication, where my Twitter and my LinkedIn are mostly just science communication. So Facebook is probably one of the very first social networking sites. The most popular for a while there. There's 15 million users within Australia in 2019. Interestingly, more females use Facebook than males. 35 to 39-year-olds are the highest daily users, which is probably indicative of when Facebook came out. And Northern Territory and Tassie use it the most frequently. That might be a demographic thing, whereas Victorians don't really use it very much. So this has some great advantages where it's a massively popular platform, so you've got a huge potential audience. It's the best way to drive your traffic and audience to other websites, and it can be highly targeted because you curate your own followers and connections. Okay, so how do you use Facebook effectively? So post regularly, probably 3 to 4 times a week as a starting point, and then build yourself up to no more than 1 post a day. You can interject some personality. A human voice makes you relatable, and this actually goes across a lot of these go across all of the platforms. People want to hear who you are and why you're passionate about these things. You can actually actively ask people questions to encourage interaction. And if you're going to do this, you want to do it correctly, you need to spend about 1.5 hours to 2 hours a week posting, retweeting, and interacting. And so this is just an example of the Geological Society of Australia Facebook page. This is what I was talking about. You can actively drive traffic to your website. So this is an article about a fish fossil site in ACT. So that's this really easy way. Oh, that's interesting. Click the link and it takes you to that website. This is another way that you can use it really effectively to take people to your website. This is the announcement of a plenary speaker for the AESC. And you see that there's actually two websites there you can go to. You can go to the call for abstracts, and you can also go to the speakers page. Now, Twitter, this is my favorite science communication platform that I use. And this is really an ongoing conversation where people all over the world can read and post short messages, and other people pick up to them and respond to them and make a conversation. It's reasonably popular, 4.7 million users, dominated more by males. And there's quite a few interactive initiatives going on that some people have put together to get more females on Twitter and sort of raise up their profiles. Largest demographic is 30 to 39-year-olds. And interesting, 8% of users have an account, don't tweet anything, don't like anything, just like to curate sort of like a newsfeed for themselves. So its advantages are it's a huge international potential audience. It's highly interactive. There's no restriction on post frequency because you have such, your Twitter feed evolves so quickly. You can post as many times as you like. It's easy to connect with influencers. The hashtags are really easy. Broader media commonly use it. So some of the superstars have actually used Twitter to get attention from traditional news outlets and journalists to publish their work and publish their things. So that's it's a really strong and powerful thing for that. And it's easy to track the success of your tweets as well. So using it effectively, these are two examples of people that use it quite effectively. And later on, I'll talk about a couple of others. Actually, Sandra McLaren, who's giving the webinar, the next webinar, she's excellent on Twitter. She uses it to engage with her students as well as other followers, and she does a really good job of it. So follow others to gain others. Most people will give you a follow if you follow them, which is a really easy way to build up your following. Post regularly, so try and post at least once a day. Use hashtags to tap into trending conversations. So before I was saying that WOMISA did a post about Science Week. If you want to see what other people are doing for Science Week, you just hit that hashtag Science Week line and it'll take you to every single tweet that Science Week has had for that week or whatever. So engage people using that tagging function that I spoke about, and make sure you always reply and thank people for their comments, or thank them for reading, or thank them, or, you know, just be polite all the time. It really makes people remember who you are. And show an interest, ask questions. So for example, if you look at Jeremy down there, he's the president of the Science and Technology Australia. And he's got a tweet there about how space blows his mind. Ask him what his favourite star is, what gets him engaged with, what makes him go to the Hubble imagery all the time. Get interactive. People love other people asking questions of them. And it's really easy and quite effective to help promote other people's content. So Sandra may post that she's doing the webinar, so I'll give that a quick follow and say, make sure you check out Sandra's webinar about effective online presentations, things like that. So you want to look at spending about 90 minutes a week posting, retweeting and interacting when you're on Twitter. Instagram. So Instagram is a great visual platform. And you can apply filters, but not many people do that these days. You can also add location data to your photos, which is really important. And I've got there, and you can share them through other social media sites like Facebook and Twitter. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, whether you want to do that or not. So it's quite popular, 9 million users. More females use it than male. A bit of a younger demographic, but then the 30 to 49-year-olds come in a very close second. And Victorians, interesting, on average, are the highest users, followed by New South Wales, and South Australia ranks the lowest. So that could be demographics, that could be the coffee culture in Victoria. I don't know, who knows? So this is a highly visual platform, and it's really useful for scientists that work in the field or do things that are really visual. Like I said, popular with younger demographics. The introduction of the Instagram stories is really great because you can post real-time content of what you're doing. It's kind of like a live video blog, if you like.
And this is true with almost all of your social media. It's not about you and it's about you and your work, not just about your work. Probably the only one that doesn't apply to is LinkedIn. So using Instagram effectively. Oops, sorry. So again, follow and interact with others to gain followers. Post regularly, about three times a week if you can. But make sure you post a variety of content. You don't want to post just photos of rocks or just photos of the plants or that you look at or things like that. And this is a great example. This is the Instagram page that Phil talked about in his introduction. You see there 33.4 thousand followers, which is awesome. And you can see here, this is how they've got a great variety of content on their page. They're talking about plenary speakers. They're advertising this webinar. They're advertising a division. I think it must be New South Wales division. A cool inclusion that looks like Australia. So really varied content. The Geological Society of Australia Instagram page also does this really cool thing where if you use the hashtag Geological Society of Australia and you have a really interesting photo, a really interesting post, they'll reshare that, and that helps you gain followers. So that's a way for you to get more followers and build up. And this is something that I've found really, really a good way to build more followers on my Instagram is that when the GSA have posted things on their Instagram with a link to my Instagram page, I always get 10, 15 more followers added, that follow me based on that thing that they found me through the GSA. So like and comment on pictures that you find interesting, and aim to spend about 60 minutes a week posting, I wrote retweeting, that should say sharing, or they use some word, and interacting. And this is just an example, a highly visual thing where, that's talking about the Plenty River in Plenty George Park of Victoria that one of our members posted. So this is I think Instagram is a really good benefit to earth scientists because it's highly visual, and we work in some of the most beautiful and unique landscapes on Earth. So you can use it to post a day in the life of me as a geologist. This is an awesome photo, which is actually used to promote a talk that Heidi Allen did for GSWA. But this is the sort of thing that you would post and say, hey, I'm out in the field today. Look at these amazing landscapes. You can talk about you can see at the bottom of the photo there's some interesting weathering textures and probably some sedimentary features. You can talk about why the layering is so flat. There's all sorts of things you can talk about that photo on Instagram. Instagram doesn't have a text limit, so you can talk about all the things in the photo for as long as you want, really. And this is another GSA post. And this is the member spotlight they did for National Volunteer Week. So this is more of this is me and what I do in my job type thing. And this is an Instagram post from the AGCC advertising the Taylor and Francis cupcakes that I'm sure everyone that got one enjoyed. It's just a really great way to say, hey, look at this amazing visual thing. Oh, cupcakes, I love cupcakes. And they might wander on over to the booth and get one. So LinkedIn is basically Facebook for professionals. You wouldn't on LinkedIn make a post about how you've had a really cool holiday unless you went and saw some really cool geology. And that's something you may like to post on LinkedIn. It's more about, you see lots of posts like, I'm extremely excited to share with you, or it was a wonderful pleasure to speak at. That's the type of things you would post on LinkedIn. It's one of the most fastest growing networks. You see there, the bottom dot point there, 2 new members every second across the world join LinkedIn. So it's huge across the world, and it's got an amazing potential to get a professional network and a potential audience. It's really effective at brand building. Lots of influencers use this, and it has the ability to publish longer posts. So you can kind of write like a small article or something like that in a longer post and then publish that. And it's great to keep up your network with former colleagues. Again, male dominated, 18 to 29-year-olds probably use it the most, but then if you see the close seconds there, you're pretty much looking at 18 to 40 to 50-year-olds that use it. And most people that use LinkedIn check their feeds about 10 times a week, which is a lot. So using it effectively, you can see this is a post here. From myself, I'm so happy to share. That's the type of thing that's very typical on LinkedIn. Make sure this is you're making this effective, you need to make sure your profile is up to date and complete. Make sure you have an accurate bio. Make sure all of your publications and all of your conferences and everything are added into that. Make sure your profile is up to date and complete as possible. And one thing that I cannot stress enough, and that's for most of these things, is make sure that your profile picture shows your face. You're not wearing a hat that covers your face. You're not wearing sunglasses. It's not a picture of a dog, your dog, or a picture of you catching a fish or something like that. Make sure it's professional. It's linked into what you do. That's really important. Be interactive, comment, reply. Every day or two, post updates, like content, and then maybe try to write a longer post on a weekly bias. I'm not very good at that type of thing, but I do use it to promote things like you can see on this photo here. Aim to spend about 90 minutes a week interacting and posting. Use content that's already developed by other media. So this is really good to, upload if you're allowed to, or you want to. You can upload your PowerPoint presentations if you've given a presentation, post a link to a publication. And it's really good to reshare old content. So I might use this, and I'll talk about this a little bit later. I might use this post, and I posted this about a week and a half ago. I might go, haven't posted on LinkedIn for a while. I might just post something else about this publication and see if I can get a bit more awareness to my publication. Now, speaking of awareness, what I've actually done here, LinkedIn is really, really good at tracking the performance of your posts. So this publication is publication that I've been working on for 6 years. So it's really good to see that this has this many views. You can see up the top here, I hope you can see my thing. See this up here? So I posted it on the 26th of August. I've had 73 reactions. So that's a like or a celebrate, or so they, those sorts of things, love. 14 people have commented on it, but 3,389 people have actually looked at this post and clicked more to read the rest of it. And this gives you an excellent breakdown of what they do. So the first column here, this is where people work that looked at it. The second column is their job title. So 632 people have the title geologist that looked at this post. And interestingly, 266 people actually lived in Perth. And this is a Central Australian publication. So that's really interesting. So LinkedIn gives you excellent metrics to look at to see how effective your posting is. So just another poll. So now that you know a little bit more about social media, I'm just interested to see if you think that you use social media for science communication. I think sometimes we do these things that are a bit organic and we don't realize what we're doing. We actually are communicating our science, but it's just because we have a passion for it. As scientists have an amazing passion for what they do. So, yep, excellent, excellent. Some are still not sure, that's okay. Maybe after today, you'll maybe start doing one post a week on science communication, and that will help. Okay, so most people think, yep, 71% of people are saying yes, they do use social media for science communication, which is awesome. I think we'll finish that one off now. So you can see the results there. So now I'm just going to take you through, I've only got a couple more slides. I'm just going to take you through how to compose a post. What's the effective things within a post you can use? Number one, make it visual. Almost all platforms now have a visual component to them, and I'll use this as an example. I'm going to take this example through a few of the different scenarios. So this is again another post. This is on on Twitter, saying, "Hey, look, I've got a new publication out." And so make it visual. So I've put the front cover. NTGS do awesome graphics on their front covers. So I've put an interesting front cover there to draw people's attention. Oh, jewelry, that's interesting in a sand dune. Wonder what that's about. Use a hook. Don't bury your lead. Highlight the important facts, findings, or purposes that your audience will find interesting. So this is something that also you can take into when you're writing media releases and things like that. Use a hook. So a hook might be, I was about to jump out of the plane and then I realized that. And everyone goes, you're about to jump out of a plane? What did you realize? Like the plane was falling? What's happening? Blah, blah, blah. That's a great hook. What also you need to, something else to highlight is how it affects people emotionally or how it can be used. If you develop a new technology, that means that you have found a way to do drilling that has less of an environmental impact. That's the most important thing of the story, not how you got there. That's the most important thing. So that's what you need to put first. That's your hook. That's the important thing. use hashtags. So you can see here, I've used hashtags of stratigraphy and drill holes in the Mardy's Basin. And I've also tagged my co-authors in it. So my co-authors were Heidi and Pete, and that's the Twitter page of GSWA. And also what I don't have in that is make sure you include a link to download it. How do you download it? You want to avoid posting a PDF of your publication on things like ResearchGate and things like that. And I know we have problems with firewalls and they're really expensive, with paywalls and they're really expensive and things like that. But if it's an open source, something open source, like for example, Geological Survey publications, which are free to download, you want those metrics to be measured in your workplace. Don't post the PDF, post a link where people can find the download. Okay, so advertising publications. So going on from how do you compose a post, if you've got a publication, how do you keep that in people's minds? So this is the original tweet that I just spoke about. So you can use the retweet or reply to your own tweet or post or whatever function to continue the conversation over time. So when I first posted this, and then a couple of days later, I think I posted the original one on the 28th of July, so on the 31st, I tweeted something else and I just did this. I clicked down the bottom on the reply, just down here. And I put a photo out of the publication and just a little bit of a fun fact about those rocks. I've used some of the same hashtags. So I've kept stratigraphy, but this time I've used Paleozoic and geoscience. And I've got a new image, so that creates a little bit more interest. And then another 5 days later, I've posted something else. This time I've talked about a different drill hole. I've used the Mardy's Basin hashtag from the original tweet, and I've talked about glaciation. And then about 2 weeks later, I posted another one. I must have been short on tweet information for that, and just posted another photo with some beautiful stromatolite textures, and talked about them and how old they were. And I've continued to tag my co-authors in that so that they can keep the conversation going on their own platforms. And how do you do this? This little add another tweet down here. That's how you make these threads, they're called in Twitter. Another thing that's really important is advertising, events, presentations, webinars, committees you're on, those sorts of things. They're really good to generate interest in things that you're involved in. It raises your public profile, but it also raises the profile of the event or the society. So I spend a lot of the tweeting I do, this is a LinkedIn post here, but a lot of the tweeting and LinkedIn things I do is saying, hey, look at this amazing initiative that GSA has. I really like building up the society, and so people see its value. Make sure you use the hashtags of the event. This might mean you have to go to the event's Twitter account or Facebook page or Instagram and find out what hashtags they're using, and make sure you use the same ones. In this, you can see I've used the Superstars of STEM hashtag, and I've also tagged Science and Technology Australia, who runs Superstars of STEM. Tag other people that you're collaborating with. In this, I've tagged Steve Hill and Steph McLennan, who were both at the event. If this photo was expanded, you would see all three of us. And this is a photo of all the Superstars of STEM. And if there's a registration page, remember to link that as well. Here's another example of something that I tweeted. So back in May, I did a talk for kids through SheMaps. During the first working from home, massive countrywide one, they did daily science talks for kids to call into, and they asked me to give one. I spoke about Minecraft and how you can find the rocks in Minecraft in Australia. So you can see the hashtags I've used there are Minecraft, because who knows who's on Twitter looking for Minecraft. It's wildly popular. Live in Orbit is the SheMaps. So this is actually the tweet that SheMaps put out. And these are the hashtags they use. And they've also tagged in Women's Science Australia and Science and Technology Australia. What I did to interact with that, I replied to that saying, hey, awesome. I'm about to give this talk in 30 minutes. Look, I'm wearing my Creeper t-shirt. Those of you that don't know Minecraft, Creeper is one of the bad guys that blows you up and kills you. And I've used because it's on their post, I don't need to tag them, but I've used those Minecraft and geology hashtags again. And this is a LinkedIn post that I've used to advertise the Intra GSA when we first launched it. And this is actually what I've done here is this bottom part here where it says Verity Normington for the second time. This is the original post. So I've reshared my original post. So remember I said that you can reshare old content with a new take. That's what I've done here. And I've been naughty and not used capital letters for my hashtag there. So native posting. What's native posting? Nothing to do with bees and these beautiful native flowers that I've got here. Native posting is when you post directly to a platform. So you're on your phone, you go to your phone, open up Instagram, hit make a post, and you make a post. Most platforms will actually prioritize posts made in their own apps or on their own websites in their feeds over third-party posts. So I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. This is an example of what you'll see on Instagram. Once you're, you've done your post, put your filter in, blah, blah, blah. This is where you would write your caption, hashtag, beautiful forest, all those sorts of things. And this is basically what this here does. This is where it says Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Flickr. This is where you can automatically post it to another platform. So this is an awesome time saver, but it does have its fallbacks. Like I said, on things like Facebook and particularly Facebook and Twitter, when you've got your settings to most popular and not most recent, so you're not looking at a chronological feed, you're just looking at a most popular feed. Those platforms will prioritize posts that have been made in their own platform over posts that have been shared through things like Instagram or Twitter or Facebook to them. There's another reason that you may not want to do this is because you don't get the maximum impact, especially when you're posting on Instagram, of your amazing graphics. So this here is an example of what happens when you click Twitter. I want to post this post also to Twitter. This is what happens. You just get a link. You don't actually get the photo. So you're actually minimizing the impact of this amazing photo that you want to share with people. You're better off posting it on Instagram and then opening up Twitter and posting it on Twitter. Another reason for that is that different platforms you expect to have different text. So for example, on Instagram, you're going to have an awesome photo, and say you've got a photo of a sunset, you would write walking along the rocks, hashtag sunset, hashtag silhouettes. And you will do geographically tag it, because you can add geographical tags to Instagram. If you're on Twitter, you'll post the photo, but you'll probably say something a little bit different. If you're on LinkedIn, you're definitely not going to say that. What you're going to say is, taking a walk along the cliffs, look at the amazing geology. This outcrop is blah formation. It is 350 million years old, things like that. So I try to post different things across different platforms, not necessarily on Facebook because that's not my science communication platform, but I definitely try to post different things across the different platforms I use for science communication. So how do you find content? Sometimes you're like, look, I'm just sitting in the office all day and I've got nothing to do. I've got nothing interesting, no one cares, and I'm sitting in front of my computer writing up my thesis. One of the really cool things you can do is you can participate in events. So we've already talked about how WOMISA asked their followers to talk about Science Week. This is an example from Science Week 2019 where this is my lab, and STEM got me here with the 2 hashtags that they were promoting. And basically, I was definitely sitting in the lab this day, sitting in my office, sorry, this day, and I just pulled up some photos that I had on my computer or on my phone, did a cheeky tag of ABC Science and Lily Cerner from when I was in Catalyst, and just did a quick little, this is where I've been, and these are the amazing people I get to work with. This is another example. This is from the week later, which is Book Week. And I thought, well, I'm not doing any Book Week things, but I can participate in Book Week by posting my 3 favorite science books. And that's what I've done there. I've tagged in the authors when they've got Twitter accounts. Sometimes you get a reply, sometimes you don't, but other people may see this. Follow across disciplines and across industries, and comment and reshare on that. That's going to make your feed and people that are looking at your posts, it's just going to give you a little bit of of diversity in what you're posting. So this is from Dr. Darren Saunders, who some of you might have seen on the drum. He is involved in STA as well. This is a post that he posted about this awesome speech that was given about misogyny and impunity. And I thought that's awesome. I want my followers to share this, and it's something that I feel passionate about. So this is something that, an easy way for me to do that without generating any content. This is another one. So Sonia is a superstar of STEM. She's an awesome cow scientist. She looks at DNA of cows and making sure there's a DNA diversity. She's also competed on Ninja Warrior, which I think is just amazing. And not only did she competed on Ninja Warrior, she competed on Ninja Warrior just 2 years after she recovered from breast cancer. So I think that's amazing, and I really wanted to highlight how amazing that is and the different things that scientists do. Live tweeting. So I said at the beginning of this webinar, feel free to live tweet. This is me live tweeting at a webinar I went to that was called Leading Through Uncertainty, that Happiness Concierge did, and STA Australia ran. So I put in a quote that was spoken about, and I've also put in I've replied to my own post and put in a photo of the presentation. And this is when I went to the Catalysing Gender Equality conference earlier in the year, and I went to a workshop which was about connecting girls in STEM careers. So I've taken a photo of the title slide, and these two people went on Twitter, so I couldn't tag them, but then I've also replied to my own tweet with a heartbreaking quote that data that they said that in some areas of Australia, over half the population don't see STEM careers as a viable option. So this is my last slide. So how do you find the time? I said that you need to spend 2 hours on this and an hour on that and blah, 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 blah. I would definitely say plan ahead. If you know you're going to be at a conference and you know who you're going to see speaking, have a look at the title, at the program. You can draft tweets, you can draft posts on LinkedIn and on pretty much every platform. So while you're sitting there having breakfast in the morning, and you know, if you're in a hotel or something at a conference and you don't know anybody, you'd probably be having breakfast at a cafe by yourself. Jump on Twitter, start drafting your posts about who you're going to see. All you need to do then, snap a quick photo of a cool slide, and you can just put that into your post and tweet it or post it. Be opportunistic. If you're walking around, and you see a really cool outcrop when you're going for your run, take a photo. You don't necessarily have to post it right then and there, but when you're on the bus on the way to work, you can post it. Check out this cool rock formation I saw on my run this morning. Add posting to your to-do lists or schedule time in your calendar. This is something that I do. If I've got, say, for this example for this webinar, I was like, oh, I need to make sure I remember to continually keep that in people's minds and post about it. I write that in my calendar. Today, you need to post about this. And I also write it in my to-do list. And remember, you only really need 5 minutes to post something. So you don't have to sit down and do it all at once. You can do it. I went to a talk once and the guy said, look, you can just do it while you're sitting on the loo. Depends on how long you sit on the loo every day. But you don't need much time while you're sitting on the bus, waiting for the bus, while you're waiting for your coffee to be made in the morning, those sorts of things. So I thought I would just highlight a few awesome Twitter accounts. So Anthony Reid is a Geological Survey of South Australia and is a GSA member. He has some really great tweets. This is one day when he was in the core shed talking about, metasomatic rocks. Anna, who's actually on the webinar, I saw you jump on. She was out in the field, and this is some photos of her doing some sampling of plants for biogeochemistry and regolith and those sorts of things, using some awesome hashtags there. And Professor Emma Johnson, as I said before, she is at UNSW. She has an awesome Twitter account. She goes for a run every morning and she posts a photo of the rocks or the clouds or the ocean or things like that, fun things that she sees along the way. So she might go for a run. Pretty sure she does a tweet while she's running. I think she probably does it when she gets home because they always come up about 9 o'clock every day. That's my last slide. Thank you everyone for listening. Just wanted to remind you about virtual guests. This is the ACT one because I'm a little bit biased because I'm in the ACT now. Don't forget to get your abstracts in before the 15th of September. So that's the end of me. I will stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody. Cool. Thanks.